Everything was ready, the dress, the guests, the reception. An hour before the wedding, I discovered my fiancé was cheating on me with my best friend. Instead of crying, I put on my white dress, walked to the altar, and made sure they would both remember this day forever. I loved Trevor for 7 years. We met in college, where he was that guy who always held your hand, brought you coffee in the morning, and surprised you for no reason at all. Back then, I thought I'd struck gold, the kind of man my mother always said was too good to be true. Looking back now, I should have listened to her. Trevor and I started as lab partners in organic chemistry. He was the only one who laughed at my terrible science puns, and I was the only one who appreciated his obsessive color coding of molecular structures. We spent countless nights in the library, supposedly studying, but really just talking about everything and nothing at all. When he asked me out after finals, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Our first date was at this tiny Italian restaurant just off campus, the kind of place where the tablecloths are paper and they give you crayons to draw with. Trevor spent the entire evening creating an elaborate cartoon story of how we met, complete with stick figures wearing lab coats and safety glasses. I kept that paper for years, tucked away in my journal. Sarah came into our lives during senior year. She transferred from another college and quickly became part of our friend group. I remember the day I introduced her to Trevor, there was something in the way she looked at him that should have set off alarm bells. But I was too trusting, too secure in what I thought we had. After graduation, Trevor and I moved to Boston together. He landed a job at a prestigious research firm, while I pursued my dreams in architectural design. Sarah coincidentally got a position at a nearby hospital. We all spent so much time together, weekend brunches, movie nights, holiday celebrations. She was there for everything, my supposed best friend, the one I confided in about wedding plans and future hopes. The day before our wedding, we hosted an intimate dinner for our closest friends and family at La Maison Azure, this elegant French restaurant overlooking the harbor. Everyone commented on how perfect we were together, how radiant I looked, how lucky Trevor was. Sarah gave a beautiful toast about friendship and love that brought tears to my eyes. If only I knew then that every word was poison wrapped in honey. The message came at 11:47 p.m., just as I was doing one final check of the seating arrangements. An unknown number. A simple text, "You deserve to know the truth." And then the video. I still remember the timestamp on the security footage, 3:24 p.m., last Tuesday. The Ocean View Hotel, where Trevor and I were supposed to spend our honeymoon. There they were, my fiancé and my best friend, wrapped in an embrace that left no room for misinterpretation. His hands tangled in her hair, her lips on his neck. The same neck I'd kissed goodbye that morning when he told me he had a business lunch. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the phone. The video kept playing on loop, each viewing revealing new, crushing details, the way she laughed at something he whispered, how his hand traced patterns on her back, the same gesture he always used to comfort me during thunderstorms. But what broke me wasn't the kissing or the touching. It was the familiarity of it all. This wasn't a first-time thing. They moved together like they'd done this 100 times before. I called my sister, Kate, at midnight. She answered on the first ring, probably assuming I had some last-minute wedding jitters to work through. Instead, she listened to me sob for 20 minutes straight before saying, "What do you want to do?" That question stopped my tears cold. What did I want to do? The obvious answer was to call off the wedding, curl up in bed with a bottle of wine, and let everyone else deal with the fallout. But as I sat there in my apartment, surrounded by wedding preparations, the handwritten vows on my desk, the carefully crafted seating charts, the signature cocktail list we'd spent weeks perfecting, something else began to take shape in my mind. "I want them to feel what I'm feeling right now," I whispered into the phone. But worse. Kate was silent for a long moment. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't do anything until I arrive." While waiting for her, I started digging. Every text, every email, every social media interaction between Trevor and Sarah for the past year. There were hundreds of seemingly innocent exchanges, but now I could see the subtext, the inside jokes, the carefully worded messages that could mean nothing or everything. I found credit card statements showing lunch dates on days when they were both supposedly working. Hotel charges that Trevor had explained away as conference stays. By the time Kate arrived, I had a timeline of their betrayal spread across my dining room table. But more importantly, I had a plan. "You're sure about this?" Kate asked, looking over my hastily scrawled notes. "It's not too late to just walk away." I picked up my phone and pulled up the wedding vendor contracts. Walking away is exactly what they expect me to do. They probably think I'll fall apart, cancel everything in tears, and let them play the sympathetic friends who help pick up the pieces. I smiled, and Kate later told me it was the scariest expression she'd ever seen on my face. But I'm not giving them the satisfaction. We spent the next 3 hours executing phase 1. Kate handled the calls to the hotel and vendors while I worked on the digital side. 7 years in technical design hadn't just taught me about architecture, I knew my way around financial systems too. By 4 a.m., everything was in place. I got ready as planned, letting my mother and bridesmaids fuss over my hair and makeup. Sarah arrived with the other bridesmaids, playing her part perfectly. She hugged me, teared up appropriately when I put on my veil, and even fixed my train with trembling hands. I wondered if those hands had trembled when they touched my fiancé. "You look absolutely beautiful," she gushed, meeting my eyes in the mirror. "Trevor won't know what hit him." I smiled back, feeling eerily calm. "No," I agreed softly. "He really won't." The church was packed. 300 guests, all dressed in their finest, all there to witness what they thought would be the perfect culmination of a perfect love story. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon as the bridesmaids walked down the aisle. Sarah went last, as my maid of honor, carrying her bouquet of white roses, the ones she'd insisted would look better than my original choice of peonies. Then it was my turn. The wedding coordinator gave me my cue, and the first notes of the bridal march filled the air. Every head turned as the doors opened. I caught glimpses of familiar faces as I walked, Trevor's parents in the front row, looking proud, my college roommate crying happy tears, Sarah's boyfriend, who had no idea what his girlfriend had been up to, beaming at me from his pew. Trevor stood at the altar, handsome in his tailored tuxedo, with that crooked smile I used to love. His eyes met mine, and for a split second, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. He could tell something was different about my walk, my smile, my eyes. Good. I wanted him off balance. The minister began the ceremony with his practiced warmth. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." I let his words wash over me, counting down the moments. Trevor took my hands in his, and I had to resist the urge to recoil. His palms were sweaty. Another tell, he knew something was wrong. Before we proceed with the vows, I said clearly, my voice carrying through the church's perfect acoustics, "I'd like to share something special with everyone." I turned to face our guests, maintaining my serene smile. "Love is about trust, honesty, and loyalty. Wouldn't you agree, Trevor?" He swallowed hard but managed a nod. In the front row, Sarah's face had gone pale. I gestured to my brother Michael, who had been waiting for his cue. The large screens we'd set up for the wedding slideshow flickered to life. But instead of childhood photos and romantic moments, security camera footage from the Ocean View Hotel filled the screens. The timestamp was crystal clear, as was the audio. "I can't wait until this weekend is over," Sarah's voice rang out through the church's speaker system. "Once she's out of the picture, we can finally stop hiding." Trevor's response was equally damning, "Just a few more days, baby. I've already started moving money into our private account. She'll never know what hit her." The footage continued, showing multiple meetings, secret rendezvous, all carefully documented with dates and times. But the financial records that followed were even more damning. Transfers, hidden accounts, plans to embezzle from our joint savings, all meticulously organized and displayed for everyone to see. The gasps and murmurs from the guests grew into a steady roar. Sarah's boyfriend stood up and walked out, his face a mask of disgust. Trevor's mother had her hand over her mouth, while his father looked like he might be sick. "But wait," I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. "There's more. Trevor, remember when you insisted on handling all the wedding arrangements because you're so good with contracts?" I turned to Sarah. "And you, dear friend, remember how you helped him review all the vendor agreements?" Their faces showed the dawning horror of realization. Fun fact about contract law, I continued, now addressing the stunned audience. When you're too busy planning your secret life together to read the fine print, bad things can happen. Like, say, all the wedding expenses being legally transferred to the maid of honor's credit cards. Sarah's shriek of, "What?" echoed through the church. "Oh yes," I smiled. "Every single vendor contract was revised last night, perfectly legal with the power of attorney you both signed when you offered to handle the paperwork. The $75,000 reception. The premium bar package. That ridiculous ice sculpture you insisted on. It's all on you now." Trevor lunged forward, probably to try to stop whatever he thought might come next, but my brother and two of his friends stepped in smoothly to block his path. "We'd practiced this moment." "But that's not even the best part," I said, my voice dropping to a theatrical whisper that nonetheless carried to every corner of the church. "While you two were busy planning your little escape, I was having some interesting conversations with the SEC about certain irregularities in Trevor's company's research department. Specifically, about data manipulation in pharmaceutical trials." Trevor's face went from red to ghostly white in an instant. He knew exactly what I was talking about, the falsified trial results he'd been hiding for months, the same ones he'd bragged about to Sarah in their private messages, believing they were secure. I hadn't just been investigating their affair, I'd been documenting everything. "You wouldn't," he whispered hoarsely. "I already did," I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear. "The investigation starts Monday. I'd check your email, but, well, you might want to call your lawyer first." Sarah tried to run. She made it halfway down the aisle before realizing her credit cards had already been maxed out with wedding charges. No taxi would be coming to her rescue. She stood there, mascara running down her face, as her perfectly crafted world crumbled around her. I turned back to our guests, who sat in stunned silence. "I'm so sorry to have brought you all here under false pretenses. The reception has been cancelled, but I've arranged for the catering to be delivered to the homeless shelter on 5th Street. Please feel free to stop by there if you'd like to make this day mean something positive." I handed my bouquet to my sister Kate, who was beaming with pride. Then I faced Trevor one last time. "You know what the saddest part is? I actually considered forgiving you last night. For one brief moment, I thought about how 7 years is a long time to throw away. But then I remembered something my grandmother told me, the only thing worse than wasting 7 years is wasting 7 years and one more day." The walk back down the aisle was nothing like my entrance. This time, I held my head high, feeling the weight of 300 pairs of eyes on me, not with pity, but with respect. As I reached the doors, I heard the commotion start, Trevor's father demanding answers, Sarah's boyfriend confronting her about joint accounts they'd shared, the CEO of Trevor's company, who I'd made sure would be present, already on his phone with the legal department. Outside, a sleek black car was waiting, not the white wedding limo we'd originally booked, but a private car service Kate had arranged. The driver held the door open for me, and as I slid into the cool leather interior, I finally let out the breath I felt like I'd been holding for days. My phone buzzed. Text messages and notifications were pouring in, but the one that caught my eye was from an unknown number, the same one that had sent me the video of Trevor and Sarah. "Well done," it read. "Dinner sometime?" I smiled, thinking about the mysterious sender. Was it someone from Trevor's office who had witnessed his indiscretions? One of Sarah's rivals at the hospital? Or perhaps someone else entirely who had recognized the toxicity of their behavior and decided to take action? Part of me wanted to know, but another part appreciated the mystery of it all. The car pulled away from the church, and I watched in the rearview mirror as the crowd spilled onto the steps. Some were crying, others were arguing, but most were simply standing there, processing what they'd witnessed. I caught a glimpse of Trevor being confronted by his company's CEO, his career imploding in real time. Sarah sat alone on the steps, frantically calling credit card companies, only to discover that every attempt to dispute the charges would trigger an automatic fraud investigation, another little detail I'd worked into the contracts. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Kate. Champagne is chilled, flights are booked. Ready when you are. We had our own plans for what would have been my honeymoon week. Not the romantic Maldives getaway I'd originally planned, but something better, a sister's adventure through New Zealand, all expenses paid by the hefty cancellation insurance policy I'd taken out months ago, in Sarah's name, naturally. As the car turned onto the highway, I slipped off my wedding heels and pulled out the envelope I'd stashed in the car that morning. Inside was a single first-class ticket and a reservation confirmation for a private villa overlooking the Pacific. Not running away, but running toward something new. Something untainted by betrayal. The late afternoon sun caught my diamond engagement ring as I slipped it off. I'd considered selling it, but I had a better idea. The women's shelter I volunteered at ran a program helping survivors of domestic abuse rebuild their lives. The ring would fund their job training program for the next year. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about making others suffer, it's about turning their betrayal into something meaningful. As the city skyline faded behind me, I realized that while Trevor and Sarah's actions had broken my heart, they hadn't broken me. In fact, they'd unleashed something far more powerful, the knowledge that I was stronger than any betrayal, smarter than any deception, and capable of turning pain into purpose. The sun was setting as we reached the airport, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new beginning, wrapped in the colors of ending. I stepped out of the car, handed my ring to the prearranged shelter courier waiting curbside, and walked into the terminal without looking back. After all, the best revenge isn't just a dish best served cold, it's one that feeds your soul while leaving your enemies to choke on their own bitter harvest.